I will be teaching a course on the book of Revelation. This is in the winter. And I subtitle it New Testament Apocalyptic Literature because really what I'm inviting people to do is to think about Revelation not as this story about the future or some code that we unpack to understand what's going on in our days, but to understand it as a Jewish apocalypse. So, the four riders, the four apocalyptic horsemen, sometimes we think about that's a judgment that God's going to bring in the future. Well, we're going to see how that's not quite what John was talking about when he wrote the book of Revelation. So just an excerpt from the course description. The course provides a close reading of the book of Revelation, so again, focus on the text, but we're going to be sensitive to how the early Jewish context of the author and the literary genre of apocalypse from a Jewish perspective, because that's Jewish apocalypses were developed within, of course, a Jewish context. And so if we're going to read Revelation, and it certainly has all the features of a Jewish apocalypse, we want to read it with that in mind. And as we do that, we'll gain an understanding of how the text really aims to shape the identity and worldview of the followers of Jesus. Some people will say that, and I think this is fair to say this, that Revelation is best read as a book about discipleship. And so what does it look like to read Revelation as a text that's exhorting people how to live like disciples of Jesus in difficult contexts? I think that's really, in a nutshell, probably a good way to describe it. So part of then what we're going to do in the course is develop skills to read Jewish apocalypses. So rather than me telling you this is how you must read this text, what are the features of a Jewish apocalypse, and then how do we unpack those? That's part of what we're going to do in the class. And again, consider different interpretations, because as you can imagine, there's lots of different ways to interpret Revelation. So we're going to look at that. And then ultimately, though, we want to discern how Revelation still speaks to us. What does it have to say to us about being disciples of Jesus in our context?